On this episode, I sit down with David Gillick, one of Ireland's most accomplished athletes, to discuss the journey beyond the finish line. David opens up about the highs and lows of his professional athletics and the challenges of self-belief and the struggles that come with transitioning out of elite sport. He shares powerful insights on mental resilience, identity, and how he rebuilt his life after retirement. This is a deep and honest conversation about overcoming adversity, setting new goals, and redefining success beyond competition. Let's dive in.
David, welcome to the Modern Warrior podcast. I'm honored to have you. Yeah, it's brilliant, man. Looking forward to this conversation. And you are a man who has endured and overcome many challenges in your life, especially through your career, and you have accumulated a lot of success in your time as an athlete, at least. And the first question I wanted to ask was, throughout that period of your life when you were being this athlete or becoming the athlete, is there a specific challenge that you would identify that, as you look back now, feel that it shaped you in terms of the man you've become today?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a tough one to start with.
Straight in.
Yeah, no, just even when you're asking that, kind of going back and overcoming, what was the thing that kept maybe cropping into my own mind, or kind of like, whether it was an Olympic year and a European year, whatever it was, probably that kind of element of self-belief. I think, having that self-belief that you can be someone and you can go and compete with some of the best athletes in the world. I think there was probably certain times that I didn't believe, and I gave myself every reason and every excuse as to why you couldn't compete with the Jamaicans or the Americans. And when I look back, it's easy kind of now to look back at the career and go, God, maybe if I just believed in myself a little bit more and realized that I was good, at what I did. And I think, as my career went on, that was probably something that I did really work on. And, I got the professional help, sports psychology, stuff like that to manage that and work on that. And that's probably something then, I got better at in my career, and then you retire from your career. And it's almost, you got to go back and start all over again. And that probably did shape me kind of through my career and then post-career as well. That was still the element that, you've got to work on this. What makes you you? What are your superpowers? What's your identity? And these are probably the things that when you're wrapped up in sport, they all come at you very thick and fast. You are this, you are an athlete. You're defined by a number, a personal best, etc. And then you have to start all over again. And I think that belief, following what you want to do, trusting your gut, that purpose, I think those are probably the key things that probably through my career have shaped me today.
And do you feel it was the lack of self-belief that drove you to then pursue those challenges, to prove to yourself that you could do it?
I think there was an element of that, yeah. I think definitely, I think sometimes in the world of sport, it may not be the route you choose. You come to the realization that, hang on a second, I've got a talent. It's a God-given talent. Jeez, I might as well use it. And then suddenly you go on this journey where the motivation comes in. You want to better yourself. You want to get to a championships and Olympics. You want to win a medal. You want to run faster. But can I do it? I'm from Dublin, Ireland here. Nobody's ever ran that fast. We haven't produced many sprinters to make world finals. So all of these things kind of come into your head thick and fast, and you think, oh, maybe I just can't do it. Maybe I'm just not good enough. And I always remember one time down in the old track in UCD, and I was only a young athlete at the time, and there was one of the coaches from a neighbouring club who was an avid photographer. He had taken a picture, and he showed me the picture, and it was me in the race, and it was a race that I did well in. And he actually stopped and he said, you know what, I'm watching you looking at that picture. You don't realise how good you are. And I always remember that because he was absolutely spot on. I didn't realize it. And maybe that was a bit of the mentality of not believing in yourself a little bit, not really, maybe it's the Irish sort of you can't kind of, I'm good at this. No, you're not. Sit down. And I think that was probably the thing that just, over time was always in the back of my head. Even the negative thought, you're coming into a championship. Have I done enough? Look at him there. He looks good.
Imposter syndrome
a little bit. And that's the honest kind of, I suppose, reflection. But I think I had the foresight and the awareness to kind of look at it and go, do you know what? This is something that maybe I need to work on. And I think that's probably a good trait that I developed in my career, where I knew I had skills in certain areas, but I wasn't afraid to ask for help. I wasn't afraid to bang on the door and go, okay, do you know what? I'm able to run fast and, I apply myself like a true professional, but you know what? I need to work on this area. And that could have been diet related. It could have been S&C, strength and conditioning, or it could have been, the psychology side of it. And I think even in the group I was training with in England, I was probably one of the only athletes who would actually seek a sports psych to work on those elements.
So you actually identified that as a weakness early on?
I did. And again, when I look back, that was probably one of the fundamental things that actually gave me the motivation. I got very much into having my clear goals. What did I want to do? How was I going to do it? And that's something I often talk about, is that kind of lots of people have goals and things they want to achieve, but who's willing to put a strategy in place? Who's willing to put a plan in place? And I got very much into that. And that gave me huge confidence, because I then began to realize, well, if I can just look after this element, if I can look after that element, there's 0.1 of a second. There's another 0.1 of a second. 0.2, 0.3 of a second. That's a huge difference in the world of athletics, and particularly in a sprint event. So I think that belief came from that, and that confidence. And I suppose the reality was, I wanted to get on that track. I wanted to set the starting blocks, stand behind the blocks, and know that I had given absolutely everything to be as best prepared as I could be, leave no stone unturned. And all of this is a process. And I don't want to sit here and go you know what, that was just me. It was in there. It wasn't. That growth mindset, and that was a book I came across years ago, Mindset by Carol Dweck. And I remember reading it. And people had talked about this fixed mindset and a growth mindset. It meant nothing to me. I didn't know what it meant. And it was only reading the book, I was like, oh, hang on, I feel like that sometimes. I feel like I couldn't be there. I couldn't get to that level, and you give yourself every reason as to why you can't. And then you read another page, another chapter, and you're going, oh, do you know what? If I do these simple little things, bang on the door, ask for help and advice, and not being afraid to ask for help and advice, Jesus, maybe I could be up there. And that kind of really drove that sort of, right, take ownership, put a plan, get good people around you. Don't be afraid to ask for help and advice. Don't be afraid to go to your coach and go, how was that? I had a great coach, Nick Dakin. How was that, Nick? Was I good today? I think sometimes as men, we're afraid to ask for that validation. You know what I mean? Oh, you're too needy. Jesus, he's too needy. But in actual fact, I was the type of athlete that I enjoyed it. I responded to that. And we have a phrase in the world of athletics where you coach the individual and then you coach the event. And that was really important to me. And I think Nick at the time understood that David's the type of guy that if I go down to him and go, Dave, that was a great session, he'll walk out of the high pack as it was 10 feet tall, and again, it's a process.
Then it's also having the balance of criticism as well, and not being sensitive when you are criticized, because as you mentioned, men do struggle with the validation piece, but we also struggle with the criticism piece because of our very fragile egos, and
it's true. And again, I think it's the environment that you're in, and maybe the people who are giving you that feedback. I was in an environment where I chose to be there. I wanted to be in this training environment. I wanted to work with this coach because he had a proven track record. There was people in the group who were essentially better than me. And I thought, you know what, if I can put myself in this environment, this ecosystem, maybe I'll flourish. And I think I'd made that decision. So I always knew, you know what, my ego's probably going to be bruised here a little bit. I'm probably going to fall behind people who are 4 or 5 years younger than me. This coach is credible. He's got experience. I trust him. So if he says to me, that's not good enough, or you need to improve that, well, you know what, I'll accept that. And I think I had the mindset, I had that sort of wherewithal to actually accept that, you know what, there's some home truths basically. And I think that's why I wanted to be there, because when I was here training in Dublin, people were nice to me. People were telling me I was fantastic. People were going, God, you're great, Gillick, this, all that and the other. And I was winning things domestically. But then I'd go internationally and I'd have my backside handed to me. And then you come back to the comfort zone of being the big fish in a small pond. And I didn't want that either. Like, I wanted to really see, like, what could I do? And it wasn't about like medals or times. It was like, what can I do? What can David do on an international level? Because I'd gone to championships and I'd had my arse handed to me and came like last in the European Under-23 semi-final. You know, all these little things where you remember them and they almost scar you. And you go, I don't want that to happen again. So what do you do with that? And thankfully, I tried to kind of turn that negative into a positive, and then, okay, well, how do I then improve upon that? Well, I need to be in an environment. I need people around me. I need people who are going to be honest and not blow smoke up my arse.
You identified that as the key pillar that took you from last place to then.
Pretty much, yeah. And I knew, look, the reality is you got to put the graft in, you got to work. And, you know, if you're not willing to do that, well, then you're not going to get there. And I made a promise with myself that I just wanted to get to the age of 30 and be able to look myself in the mirror and go, right, you gave it a go. And if I can do that to myself, forget about everybody else. If I can say that to myself, you know, at the age of 30 that I gave it a go, well, then I can be content with that. And that was probably that purpose, that connection with me, you know, whatever, that accountability, that contract, whatever word you want to use. But that was kind of my mindset when I left Dublin at the age of about 22. So I kind of was like, right, 8 years, because in 400 meter running, you're kind of, you know, it's your mid 20s to late 20s is where you can kind of peak. So I knew I only had a shelf life. This is what I need to do. And if I can do it and I can be open and honest with myself at the age of 30, well, then, do you know what? It'll all be good. Was
it an obsessive pursuit? Did it take over your life?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And, like, it's a lifestyle. Like, and I kind of realized, like, there was everything was involved, like from relationships to, there was no time off. You know what I mean? Like, it was 6 days, 7 days a week. We'd one rest day, but even the rest days were rest day because you're training again the Monday. But I loved it. You know, I absolutely loved it. I loved, like, just being a professional athlete. I loved, you know, weighing out my food. And yeah, look, I was probably hard on myself. I was very hard on myself, but that made me feel good in many ways. And like, was I intense? Yeah, I was intense about it, but I wouldn't change that because I got results. And I think there was a certain time in my life where, you know what, I needed to be like that. I needed to go all in and see what would happen. But you learn as well, and you realize, like, okay, you know, I went to Beijing 2008 Olympics and it didn't work out for me. But I got into a healthy habit of debriefing, and I'd be honest with myself, and I'd go back to the people who I trusted and give me that feedback. And including, like, at the time, my now wife, Charlotte, like, you know, Charlotte, what was I like? David, you were a pain in the arse. You were a nightmare to live with. Yeah, and this is the honest truth. This was in September 2008 after having a shocking Olympics. And she was like, you just never relaxed. And I can remember we were on holidays in Inishbofin and we went for a walk, and we had this conversation, and she just told me straight out, like, and I can remember just thinking, geez, you know what, like, if I'm going to have a career in this, I have to start enjoying it a little bit more. I have to find that balance. And that's what I did. I still worked really hard, but if I fancied a dessert, I'd have a dessert. If I fancied a beer, I'd have a beer. And I just got that balance, and 2009 turned out to be my best year. But it's that feedback. It's listening to the people that you trust, the people that you feel like you can confide in, and you value their opinion, and then doing something with it. So, you know, I wasn't afraid to debrief. I wasn't afraid to hear some home truths. But it's what you do with that. And 2009, 2010 were good years because I felt I was happy. I was happy off the track. I was happy on the track.
Yeah, a bit more balanced. There is that whole perception that if you want to become the greatest success, you've got to work and grind 24/7, you know, for 365 days a year. And you did that, but then it had the detrimental consequence.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like, I went to Beijing and didn't run well. And like, I can remember turning to Nick in the Olympic Village and going, like, something's not right. Something's not right. I said it didn't feel right. And it turned out that I had a viral infection. I had foot and mouth was what I had. And it's funny because, like, during the season, I was getting kind of issues with on my feet. And then, like, literally in the holding camp before Beijing, I came out in all mouth ulcers. And I only ever get them when I'm kind of run down and stressed. And, like, it was nice to know that I wasn't 100%. But then I asked the question, well, why did this happen? And it goes back to that exact mentality. I had to, like, I even had, like, I got it, you might remember the iPod Nano. Remember the little square thing you clip on? Listen to music when I'm running and training. And on the back of it, I had engraved to be perfect. Because everything I did in that Olympic year, I had the motto on the clipboard in my bedroom, to be perfect. So in my head, everything had to be perfect. And sure, stress myself out.
Yeah.
Like,
never going to happen.
Never going to happen. Exactly. And when I looked back in 2008, I stopped enjoying what I was doing. I was that mentality of, like, you know what, grind. Like, faster, stronger. You know, give me more. And I forgot about actually living life a little bit, that little balance, you know, flicking the off switch, you know, just trying to be normal a little bit. Even on my rest days, I wouldn't leave the house. Just have to rest, get off the legs. I wouldn't go out with friends. I wouldn't socialise because I couldn't control what was in a restaurant, you know, what they were going to give to me on the plate, you know. But it was a lesson learned, you know, and that's the thing. What do you do with that? And thankfully, 2009 turned out to be my best year. But sometimes you have to go through that hardship to realise what you're doing, what was right, what was wrong, what was working, what wasn't working.
But at the same time, that mindset did bring you to the Olympics.
It brought me to the Olympics, yeah. And look, it was a dream come true. I can remember walking into the warm-up track next to the bird's nest and looking up and seeing the flame. You know, something I dreamt of as a little kid, something I watched on TV, you know, and then suddenly there you are, you know, and it's great. And, you know, we get caught up in performances as well. So I didn't run well. I was fourth in my heat, so I didn't qualify for semi-finals. That's it. You know, 45 seconds, the Olympics is over, you know, and I was devastated. I was gutted. And, you know, a lot of people go to Olympic Games and they get the Olympic rings tattooed and stuff like that. I felt I didn't deserve them, so I never got them. And I said to myself, I'll get them in London, you know. I didn't make London, got injured. And it wasn't until 2017, Charlotte, for my birthday, got me a voucher and was like, go get the Olympic rings. You deserve them. And I went and I got them. And it's probably, again, looking back, I'm very proud I went to Olympic Games. To represent my country at the pinnacle of any sport is something to be immensely proud of. But I got caught up in performance. I got caught up in numbers. I got caught up in, like, placings and stuff like that. And I forgot about actually, you know what, when I was a little kid, that's what I dreamt of. Like, I wanted to play Premier League football, but wasn't that good. It was all about that. And I think you have to be a little bit kinder to yourself. You have to allow yourself to realise, you know what, all that work, those decisions, moving to England, leaving home, all that sort of stuff, all came to the fore in Beijing. And that's something to be proud of. Yeah.
You climbed the mountain that you wanted to climb, and then you got at the top and you go, oh, hang on a second, there's a higher mountain over here. I want to get to that one.
Yeah.
And then you failed to celebrate the feat of actually getting to the top of this top of your game.
Yeah.
And I think that is transparent. That goes across the board for so many men. Yeah. It's the never enough itis.
No, you always want more. And you get that experience. And, you know, it's hard in kind of that sort of environment as well, where, you know, you're coming back and you're flying back into Dublin, and basically team management at the top of the plane, they're kind of like doing the roll of honour of who's coming out of the plane first. And then the rest is you just go out the back door. And that was pretty much how we landed into Dublin.
That's a stinger.
You know, medal winners up front, and the rest is, there was no names even called. It was just the rest is. And I always remember that, and you land into Dublin, you're kind of going like, I'm just an also-ran here. Like, get me out of here, you know? And that's where you kind of, because sometimes the world is built around a performance, you know? And in sport, that's what it's all about. Like, I'd walk into rooms, hotel rooms and wherever I am competing, and like, you might have an agent introducing you to somebody else, and they'd say your event and your personal best before they even say your name, because that's what matters. You know, here's a 400-meter run of 44.7. I was David Gillick. Like,
it's a status.
It's all about the number.
Yeah,
it's all that's your identity.
Yeah,
you know. But you live in that world. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know.
Man, it feels like coming off the back of that airplane is more crushing than.
Yeah, well, it is when you land home. Yeah. You know, and you're back in Dublin, you think like, oh, everyone's going to be delighted for me, and then at the top of the plane, like, you're out the back door. You know. And that's, like, I'm not the only one to feel like that. And thankfully, an awful lot of change has gone in that world with the Olympic Federation, and they're very much celebrating the fact regardless of where you come, you're an Olympian. So once an Olympian, always an Olympian. And
you had words with them.
they hate the word. They hate when it's phrased as a former Olympian, and that's nice because at the end of the day, we all should be proud. We have hit a level, and that's something that, from being a little kid and your local club and local coach, etc., they've all had a role in that, and that's something to be celebrated for.
How'd you deal with that afterwards? Did that pull you into a state of despair?
Oh, yeah, I was devastated. I was bitterly disappointed. And the hard thing is, like, I'd mates who all came over to Beijing and, they're all on a good kind of buzz and I don't perform well. I don't want to do anything. And then you come home and it's just like, yeah, you feel embarrassed, to be honest. Like, you feel like you've let an awful lot of people down and,
yeah, you have a lot of weight of expectation on your shoulders.
It's just the expectation. And it's all a performance. And, you're trying to peak at the right time. You're trying to run your best at the right time. And, sometimes it pays off and other times it doesn't. And that time it didn't. And you just have to face the reality of, like, people chatting to you and stuff, and you have to, no, it's all good, go again. And you almost just want to get back on the horse straight away. Just get me back into the environment I'm comfortable in. But again, it goes, like, you learn from it. And I think you have to accept, didn't go well. Okay, what worked, what didn't work? What are the changes I can make? And then try and go again. And thankfully I did, but it's, look, it's the ego as well. You take the hit and everyone kind of bigs you up. I think there's an expectation. And I think with Olympics in particular, like, the general public suddenly kind of tune into the Olympic Games. They may not have followed that sport for the last 4 years, but then suddenly it's the Olympic Games. It's like, didn't win a medal, And that was one thing, even with my own work this year and at the Olympics. Like, one of the things I tried to do when I was interviewing some of the athletes was give a bit of context to their performance. And I think we live in a world where, if you don't win, well, then it's a failure. Or if you don't get in the top 3 on the podium, it's a failure. And that's harsh. I think particularly a good example would be our women's 4x4 team, who came fourth. Like, they had a phenomenal performance, didn't win a medal, but an absolute ridiculously good performance, and that should be celebrated. And I always kind of tell people, like, they didn't lose third, they won fourth. It was so good. And I think sometimes we forget about that. It's all about the performance. It's about a medal. It's about winning, scoring. That's what matters. And even coaching kids now, like, that's some of the stuff you try and work on with kids, because if it's all about the end result, well, you're going to have a lot of disappointed kids and probably fall out of sport. So again, it's trying to get them to value other elements of their own game, and I think it's very important.
Is it also a matter of shifting your mindset from me thinking to we thinking in terms of, I'm not just here for myself. There are, as you mentioned, children, kids watching me on TV here. I'm representing my country and I'm an inspiration. Whether you come first or last, you're at the Olympics, just as you were watching the Olympics as a child yourself. It's like, wow, I'd love to be there. It probably didn't matter where this athlete came in a race. It's like, wow,
and I think that's the things that we'd all love. Like, I've 3 kids myself, and Charlotte have 3 kids, and I'd love them just to value perseverance, to value having a goal, to value, a dream, to value, chasing that dream and that journey. And it's not about the end result. And that goes back to perfection. Like, it's subjective. It's not a destination. Like, what happens? Oh, I've got here. You go again. Whereas it's that excellence you're always looking for. And whatever you do, just try and give it your best. And I think with kids is like educating them about that journey. Even having that goal as a little 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, what do you do with that? Well, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That's more tangible for the real world than, like, an Olympic medal. It's like, that's what matters. And whatever that actually brings you to, whatever level, that should be celebrated. And I think, even the perseverance to get to the Olympic Games, it's hard. You have to hit international standards. There's a lot of stuff that people don't see that goes on in the sport, the hustle, trying to get into races, trying to make ends meet, trying to get on training camps, trying to pay a bill. It's not a professional sport where you're signed up for a 4-year contract and, you might sit in the bench but still earn 2 million. Like, that just doesn't happen. Like, and I think those are the stories. And I think what's really fascinating is, like, even reading Conor Nyland's book, where he goes into the world of tennis, which is fantastic. That's the hustle that I never knew about that sport. you just see people going to Wimbledon and going to all these glamorous places, and you think, oh my God, what a glamorous sport. But there's an awful lot of people who have to hustle, they have to work hard, even to try and get into the first round of those kind of majors, you know. And athletics is very, very similar, you know, and that's the fascinating side of it. A lot of sports are similar, and even soccer down the leagues, you're trying to make just a bit of a break for yourself, you know. But in all of that, like, I look back now with fondness of my career, and I look back at like what I have learned out of that, and you know, yes, that resilience, the bounce back ability, whatever word you want to use, but the peaks, the troughs, you know, mentally how you pick yourself up, you know, the people around you, the importance of having good relationships, that you can confide in people, you can be open and honest, in a non-judgmental way, you know. And I think that comes back to some of the things now that I'd rely on, you know, in the post-career.
What's been the highlight?
Yeah, like in a sporting terms, I think probably 2009, I made a world final, but it was probably that journey, probably coming off Beijing, not competing well. I'm proud of myself that I bounced back, and I'm proud that like I got the help that I needed. I engaged with the people I trusted in my own circle.
Was the self-belief was also challenged after Beijing?
It was massively. And, you know, you're kind of thinking, oh, you know, I'm not good enough. I'm just not good enough. And I can remember having a conversation with Nick going like, right, we'll give 400 meters one more year. That was it. And we said, right, after that, we'll either go 400 meter hurdles or move up to 800. You know, I said, right, I can't keep doing this. Give it one more year. But maybe that's what it needed. Maybe I needed to put that element of pressure on myself, and, you know, just a bit of a challenge. And the fact that he was involved, there was a bit of accountability. He had a role in it. It wasn't just me, it was him as well. And right, what I think I did better in 2009 was I began to focus on like the here and now. Forget about August time when the championships are coming around. Let's just see, you know, this block, 3 weeks, let's go at it, okay? Then you have a download week, and then you go again. So it's very much about like that journey, that process. What do I do today? We used to use the phrase like the middle of the now. Forget about August, middle of the now. What are you doing today? You know, you're going to have that cup of tea, that coffee, you're going to have that chocolate bar. What are you going to do today that's going to enable you to run fast 8 months down the line? So it all became about today. And that was great mentally, because I'd overanalyze things. I'd compare myself to what I did last year. I ran well last year. What was I doing this time of the year? What session was I doing? What numbers was I punching? You know, all of these stats, and athletics is quite statsy. So there's always a measurement there. And that can be like, you know, paralysis by analysis, you know, you're comparing yourself. So I think I was able to kind of draw that line in the sand and just go, okay, let's start afresh. Let's focus on the here and now, and let's give it a bash.
Mm-hmm. The power of being present.
All about being present.
Yeah.
And I can sit here and I can go, do you know what? Yeah, all sounds great. But like, I struggled, you know, when I retired about being present, you know, like, you know, even when I'm talking here and I'm thinking back to all those things and all those kind of the lessons that I learned. But yeah, it's so fragile, because my whole world changed when I moved away from sport, and I wasn't being present at all. You know, I was idolizing my past. I was like looking at the future and then getting freaked out of where I was going to be in 5 years, because everyone would talk about, what's the 5-year plan? David, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And you're thinking, oh my God, what is going on here? Like, you know, and you crumble and you stop being present, you know, and that was quite hard. Like,
what was the crumbling period like?
Yeah, like the whole thing about retirement, probably more the whole identity piece, you know. And again, look, being male, and you come from sport where it's faster, fitter, stronger, you know, it's like, you know, it's all about performance. It's the macho world. You're in the gym, you're trying to like PB numbers and various exercises, and you're on the track, PBs. It's all numbers. It's all relevant to who you are. You know, go back to that. You're defined by a number, and then it's all over. And that was that's the hard part. Like, that was extreme. If I'm honest, I thought it'd be easy. I thought, you know what, Grant? Like, I'm now 30. You know, yeah, I've had a decent career. I can look myself in the mirror and I can be honest and go, yeah, you gave it a go. Well done. Fair play. But it was the reality of waking up and going, what do I do with the rest of my life? And that was the hard part. And again, being male, I'm not going to talk about this. my feelings, I'm going to suppress them, my emotions, forget about that. Just shut up. This is the transition that people talk about post-sport. And I just didn't do anything about it. So like when you say crumbling, like everything crumbled because everything changed. I was now back at home. I was in the box room, my mum and dad's house. And I can remember kind of, going out the weekends, didn't have to train, so I could just do what I wanted. I could have a few beers, I could wake up hungover, it didn't matter. And then Monday would come around and everyone goes to work on a Monday. I didn't have a job. So you kind of wake up and you go, what do I do now? Like, I don't need to be anywhere. That world of sport, my training groove, Nick, my coach, they weren't in my world anymore. So you're not in the WhatsApp groups, you're not in the email threads. It's, disconnected. And that was the hardest part because I had no purpose. Who was I now? I wasn't a runner. Like, I'd retired, that's it, done. Well, what do I do now? And then people would be like, what are you up to? Oh, fuck, I hated that question. So you kind of have to give them big, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Because I probably put more pressure on myself because I had, I suppose, a level of success in the world of sports. So I thought the next phase of my life had to be like, if it's not at that level, you're a failure. And then that's where the mindset changed. And that's where the internal dialogue was just negative. Why did you go? Why did you do this? Why did you, relocate to America? You wouldn't have got injured. Why did you do this? All of these sort of things. So you begin to hate yourself, to be brutally honest. And that's just, a negative cycle. I stopped exercising. I hated athletics because it put me in the situation I was in. So I just got so far away from that as I could, and eating what I wanted and not really caring about myself,
How did you manage to find your way back?
It took a long time. I suppose I didn't initially. Took a job because I thought if I have more money, and I thought everything was about money. I thought money would give me status. I'd have a title. I was jealous of people. What do you do? I'm a this, I'm a that. I was jealous of them because I didn't have that. And then I thought, right, well, I need more money. If I have more money, I'll be content and I'll be happy. And I thought it was that simple. So I went chasing money, took the first job that came my way because there was good money. That's all. And there was good mileage on it. And I was like, happy days, I'll jump all over this. And I was spending a lot of time by myself in that job. So I wasn't involved in a team. Routine-wise, again, was kind of left to me. I had to look after accounts all over the country. So I kind of had a blank page in terms of how I did that. And that was the worst thing I could have done. Because certain days, I didn't motivate myself. I was out of sight. They were over in the UK, my team. I was here. And then you might get in the car and you might go, right, I have to go to Cork. You drive down, tick a few boxes, drive home, 6 hours in the car by yourself, hating yourself. Got to the point where I would comfort eat. I would, there was no I wouldn't listen to the radio. I'd be 6 hours in the car and I was only listening to my own voice in my head, just driving along, going, "You're a fucking idiot. You're a dope. Why did you do this?" Packed in that job, got a new job because I thought it was a job, and then another year passed. Same scenario. Stopped going out with friends and family. I was a nightmare to live with. I was volatile. Charlotte was on eggshells every day. What way or what mindset is David going to be in? I'd have a row. We'd row over trivial things. I remember one day I couldn't find a pair of sunglasses and I literally went absolutely ballistic. And then I'd storm out of the house and I wouldn't talk to her for a day. And she'd be going where is he? She wouldn't have a clue. And then we got married and then Charlotte was pregnant. We were expecting baby number 1, who's now 8. Hard to believe. But she must have been about 8 months pregnant. And what was happening, and it was getting progressively worse, but it would come to a Sunday. And I hated Sundays because I dreaded a Monday. I'd absolutely despair on Monday. So then the panic attacks would start happening on a Sunday. And on one particular Sunday, I can remember just having a complete utter meltdown and kind of just looking at the kitchen table where Charlotte was sitting and she's in tears. She's heavily pregnant. And I remember just thinking, whatever just came over me was how am I going to be a good husband? How am I going to be a good dad? And that was the catalyst for me to actually go, do you know what? I need help. So I rang someone who I had heard speak about mental health and similar kind of background in sport. And I knew him. He was from my area, a couple of years ahead of me in school, and I rang him, and he said, "Come on down." And then he said, "Let's go for a cup of tea." And then he said, "Actually, do you know what? We'll go for a walk." And I've since done a little bit of work with Men Shed, and they talk about men talk shoulder to shoulder. And that was probably the thing. I knew I needed help. I knew I needed to talk to someone, but I felt like it would be too awkward. Two lads sitting over a cup of tea in a local cafe and eyeballing each other. It was just, so I wouldn't do it. And that shoulder to shoulder out in the open was something that really just kind of put me at ease. And then like, I kind of just start talking. Like I didn't even know what I was saying. It was just like, because I suppose the fear I had was like, nobody would understand me. You know, nobody's gone through my journey. So like, they won't understand.
No, I know this place, yeah.
Yeah, you know that way? And
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
well, you wouldn't know. So what do you know? So then, and I think that's just an excuse not to be open and honest with yourself. And that's exactly what I did for like a number of years. And on this particular day, I spoke, he spoke, and everything he said resonated, you know. And I think it was just, like I always called that like probably day zero, because I was like, I'm not the only one. And that was probably the biggest thing for me to go, do you know what? I can work on this. So I actually packed in the job. We were expecting our first baby. I was virtually unemployed. I had a few things that were tying me over. And I just said, you know what? Like, I'm not happy doing what I'm doing. So I might as well try and get a little bit like happier by not doing that and actually focusing on myself. And that's pretty much what I did. And that was 2016. I started going to counselling every week, and I still go. I go every second week now. It's one of the best things I've ever done. I've learned an awful lot about me. And I think this is the thing, like, you know, people talk about counselling, it's mental health. It's actually understanding my journey and actually talking about my journey and making me understand how I felt at certain times, and, you know, dealing with that loss. And that was the biggest thing that I soon kind of realized. Well, I was actually grieving over my athletic career. I was grieving over that identity, but I wasn't doing anything about it. I was literally just shoving it under the carpet and hoping it would go away, that transition. And it was only like, you know, I suppose that year, the following years, that I began to understand and unravel it all. And like I said, it's one of the best things I've ever done. It's the best investment I've made in myself. It's made me a better person, better parent. And like, I'm not going to sit here and go, yeah, I'm the finished article. Like, I still have days, you know, but I can spot the days, and I can actually put a value on, like, do you know what? If I go for a run, I feel better about myself. You know, if I don't have a whole lot of alcohol, I feel better about myself. If I'm not waking up hungover and then being narky at the kids, I feel better about myself. And it's spotting these little things that actually I realize work for me. I love having a challenge. For years, I didn't have a challenge, right? I'll do a marathon. You know, for years, for decades, I've had a coach. I've had someone in my corner that I can go and talk to. And then for probably about 5 years, I didn't have that person. And now I have, as I call them, my board of management. I have a couple of people who I value, and I'll go and I'll have a cup of tea with them, and we'll have a chat, and they'll challenge me in certain things, and they'll see things in me I would never see. They're my coaches, they're my mentors. And I think all of these things I've just learned over the last couple of years that are important to me. I've learned to say no, you know, which is a hard thing to do. I was a busy fool for a couple of years, chasing. And what I was chasing was, and it took me a while to realize, I was chasing the one thing that was going to fix everything, change everything. And it was only through kind of counselling and actually understanding, I'm chasing to fill the void of an athletic career of which, like, you know, I'm competing in front of 60, 70,000 people. You can't do that, like. And that's okay. Accept it and you move on. And that became much more clear in my head about the decisions I was making, like putting a value on, well, what's important to me. And one of the, again, going back to kind of the mentors, like I had one guy and he said to me, how much do you need? And I remember kind of looking at him going like, what do you mean? And he's like, how much do you need? How much do you need to live? And I was like, at this moment in time, I was like, what a stupid question. I want more, as much as I can get. And it's only now do I realize like the importance of that question and what he was after, you know. And it's like, how much do you need? We can all have more money, but it comes at a price. With kids, with family, relationships, if that's you, if that's what you want, that's fine. For me, it wasn't. And I realized, like, becoming a dad, I wanted to be around I want to be present with my kids. I don't want to be thinking about emails, and so I want boundaries. I want to be there physically and mentally. I want to be able to kind of, maybe on a Monday morning go for a run. You know, maybe on a Friday I want to finish early and I want to go for a run or go on my bike. Like, those are the things that I now put a value on. And that might mean, okay, well, you're going to earn less. so be it. You know, and I think that's just where the mindset is at. And it's a challenge. I work for myself. It's peaks and troughs and COVID and all the rest of it, you know. But, and like I said, I still go to counselling because I still need to work on myself. I go for a run. That's my headspace. So, you know, talking to someone is very important to me.
Yeah, I can identify with that. I had this conversation with several men in terms of exactly what you mentioned.
Yeah.
I could make an extra, whatever, 5, 10K a month. But to make that 5, 10K a month, I'm going to have to spend less time with the kids, with the family. But so I value that time with the kids more so than I value making another 5, 10K. And so many men are caught up in chasing the money, as you said, and then losing out on what's actually important, or chasing the money for a better future.
Yeah.
I'm chasing the money or making the money so that the kids can have a great future. I was like, well, the future is now. The future is.
And I've struggled with that. I really have. I've really struggled with that because even when I was kind of struggling a bit, you think about the future and you think about, I need to save, I need to do this, and you work for yourself. I started working for myself and it was like, well, I got to bank everything because I'm so fearful of like what happens if like next year is shit, you know. And it's probably only in the last year that have I really realized, you know what, like my kids are only young for these couple of years. You know, if you have $5,000, go on a holiday, you know, yeah, it's $5,000, it's a lot of money. But like the joy and the time you spend with them, that's of value. It's not like, you know, 10 years down the line. It's here and now.
That 5K becomes a lifetime investment for them, with the connection and the memories.
The memories, that's it. Like we hadn't gone away for a couple of years, and we went away this year, and yeah, it was $5,000. I remember kind of $5,000, a lot of money, like. And then we had a week in Lanzarote, and best week we had. Just like, it was just fantastic. We're just there. We're in the pool. The kids are jumping in and out. You know, 8, 6, and 3 are my kids. Like, and it's just, then you're into the food hall and they're going up, and it's just everything about it. And you're going, that's what life should. That's the goal. You know, if I want to give myself a goal for next year, I want to take my kids away on a holiday. Boom, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is. It's the here and now. It's creating the memories. And you know, my wife's fantastic. She every Christmas she does like a photo book. So she goes and she gets all the photos. I think she's crazy. Like, I'm like, how do you do this? But she did the one for this year, and I'm looking back at it like, and it's just amazing. All those memories, those pictures. We don't do that anymore. You know, all our memories are on a phone. Like, when do you actually sit down and look back at the pictures, the year that you've had? You know, and I think when you put them in a photo book, I grew up and like, you know, I can remember going down to my granny's house and you take out, you know, the old kind of photo book and you look through them and everyone's laughing and stuff. We don't do that anymore. And fair play to Charlotte, like she, just a simple little book with the pictures of the year, and it's all the kids. And that's what it's all about, you know what I mean? She's onto something there. Giving me ideas there. I know, yeah.
And while you sit around together and go through the photos.
Yeah, and you know, the kids love them.
Yeah.
You know, we'd go into the sitting room and the kids would be looking at themselves. You know, it's amazing, really. Like, you know, and I suppose that's maybe one of the things we've lost over the years, you know, with technology and phones, that we take pictures and they're just in the pictures on your phone. But how often do you look at them, you know? Yeah,
true. And then as you reflect back on those photos, you're also remembering the memories.
It's the memories and the times, the emotions, the feelings. And I think that's in itself motivational. You go, you know, I want to do that again. I want to go back to that place. You know, I want to feel that way again. And I think that's something that I've learned over the last couple of years, and even putting a value on that. Whereas before it was all about like, it was probably about myself. Like I was prioritizing myself and trying to fix myself. I got to get a job. I got to get status. Got to get money. If I have more money, I'll be happy. More money, I'll be accepted as successful post-career. You know, and then, you know, you struggle with that because you're doing stuff that maybe you don't really want to do, but it's all about appeasing other people, and then the optics. But then you're going home and you're ratting, you're irritable. And I think that's the struggle that I've had post-career, is just trying to find that balance again, that self-worth, that self-belief, that confidence to go, do you know what, I'm going to try something a little bit new. I'm going to throw myself into a new challenge or whatever that might be. And that's where you learn a lot about yourself. And I think, you know, like I know I've listened to various people, and you know, again, for listeners, like I'm not saying that I'm the finished article. Like, I have a lot of work to do. but I'm aware of that. And I think that's not a bad place to be in. I'll have good days, I'll have bad days, but you know what? I can bounce back quicker on the bad days than say 10 years ago, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a testament to maybe the investment I put into myself, the skills that I've maybe developed, you know, everything from cognitive behavioral therapy to just even dealing with your own self-talk, and, you know, even getting a pen and paper and writing down your thoughts. Like simple things like that can be valuable ways just to manage yourself as well.
So who is David Gillick today, if he's not the Olympic athlete?
Yeah, it's funny. People call me a broadcaster now after the Olympics, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that either. But no, do you know what? Like, I'm not defined, you know, to be brutally honest. I would have tried to define myself 5 years ago because I thought, well, that's what we need to be. Like when someone says, who am I? It's like, well, do you know what? I'm a bit of this, I'm a bit of that. Depends what day you're asking me. And I think that's okay. So there's things that I love doing. I love working in the media. I love doing the post-race interviews, you know, rubbing shoulders with some of the greatest athletes we have in this country. I love sharing my story, trying to help other people. I do a lot of that. You know, I coach locally as well. So I'd like to think like I'm a portfolio of many things, and that's okay. I think the joy I get with that is it's challenging. It keeps me on my toes. It's varied, and again, I find that quite rewarding at times. And I think with all of that, I'm very, very lucky that I can be on and I can be off, and I can work that around my family, which is something that is a privilege, really. And so yeah, I probably haven't answered that question directly. So.
No, you've answered it in your own way, and that's fair, yeah. And is there something you've taken from your time as an athlete that has transferred into your life today that has been pivotal to your success as a man today? Yeah,
I think, you know, the journey I've gone through post-career has brought me back to even that simple thing of like a goal without a plan is just a wish. And there's definitely things that I want to do, but you got to put a plan in place.
So you're still very much a goal setter?
Yeah, I think that helps me. Like, it gives me motivation, and that's even from like a recreational point of view of my own fitness. Going to the gym would bore the head off me. You know, going for a run would bore the head off me. But if I have a goal, like a marathon, well, then that changes everything. I need motivation. Likewise, if I want to go on a holiday next year, okay, well, what do I need to earn to get that? How am I going to do that? You know, what are the opportunities? What are the avenues that maybe I could maybe explore a little bit more? Well, what do I need to do? Do you know what? I need to get a meeting with that person, or I need to make that phone call. And there was a time where I wouldn't do those things because I'd be fearful. I'd be afraid to kind of, they'll probably think I'm an idiot ringing them. Fuck it. You know, what's the worst that can happen? They say no, fair enough. At least I've tried. And I think that's the confidence that I've built up from being an athlete. Because when I wanted to run 44 seconds, yes, there was a time where, Jesus, David, forget about it. You know, no Irish person can do that. Why are you going to be any different? And then you get the bit, well, I'm going to try. And you build a plan. You have people at the bottom. And then what are the little things that you can do consistently to get you to where you want to go? And then you focus on the process. And that's the big thing for me. It's just working, being in the present. What are the things that I can do today that are going to help me? And I think that's probably one thing I learned as an athlete. Yes, you have to have that goal, but you also need that plan and that structure. And in the corporate world, we talk about this, and it's vision, mission, you know, strategy, collaboration. We know all this, but sometimes for ourselves, we just don't give ourselves the time to maybe explore that. And what does that look like? And sometimes it's not about more money or promotion. It could be really simple. I just want to be present with the kids or the people that matter, you know, in my world, you know, because they're the people that will stand by you. They're the people that know you. They're the people that will support you when, you know, you have your bad days, and that's life. You know, the peaks and troughs. And I think sport teaches you that success is never a straight line. You know, and it's picking yourself up and dusting yourself down and trying to go again.
How to handle failures.
Yeah. And failures are an opportunity. Like, again, even that word, sometimes we throw it out there as if you didn't hit your numbers, it's a failure. You didn't get a medal, it's a failure. Like, I've learned more about myself when I've failed. From sport, post-career, when I've failed, I've actually learned more. But I've allowed myself to actually go, okay, what happened? Debrief. And one of my biggest, I go back to 2006. I had a European title in 2005. I went to the European Outdoors and I came last in a semi-final. Didn't even make a final. And I look back at that moment as probably one of the biggest learning curves in my life, because for the first time, I got a pen and paper and I debriefed and I asked myself, David, what the fuck are you doing? What do you want out of this? I want to go to the Olympic Games. Or what are you going to do? And that was a game changer for me. Just mentally get the pen and paper out, a little mind map. What do you want? What matters to you? And that's something that, I think I learned pretty quickly in the world of sport, that you need to do that on a regular basis. And that's definitely something that I do now, So.
What's that look like? Is it set a 6-month goal based on something that's important for you? Or do you actually separate yourself from that and identify, okay, what do I want to do and why do I want to do it before you put pen to paper? Or
and like Simon Sinek, start with why is very important. Like, why do you want to do something? And this is something like people have always asked me about, like, say health and fitness and running, and I'll always ask them, well, why do you want to do it? And it can be really hard. People actually kind of find it difficult to go, I actually don't know why I want to do it. You're doing it for yourself. You're doing it because your mates are doing it. You're doing it, because you want to better. What is it? And I'm the very same. Like, I knew I wanted to do a marathon because it challenged me. I wanted to do a marathon because it would hold me to account. It would make me feel better about myself. So all of these things are very important. But simply, like, when we talk about goals and we talk about plans and stuff, that can freak people out. And I agree with that. Some people might be listening to this going, oh, Jesus, no, you know what I mean? Writing down words, getting a pen and paper and just writing down your thoughts, writing down words. If you were to throw a topic like family, what would you like it to be like? Throw down words. Okay, your health and fitness, what would you like it to be like? And if you do that, words, just put the words and then kind of take the helicopter view, start linking them together. You'll find a theme. You'll find something there that goes, okay, well, maybe that's why I want to do it. I want to be healthy. I want to live a life. I want to be able to kick football or whatever with the kids, and not be hurt or injured or ill, simple things like that. And that's what I find is beneficial for me,
Mm-hmm.
And you can get your why through that. And then it's a case of going, okay, well, what does that look like? Practical things, once a week, twice a week, whatever it is,
And you've mentioned her a few times, and she has obviously been a pivotal part of your life, of your so-called failures and successes, and she stuck by you every step of the way by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
How, when you reflect on the relationship and the marriage now, like, how did it last the turbulence of the challenges that came up in your life? Like, how did you manage to keep that together? Because it's something that so many men and women struggle with in terms of relationships, in terms of staying together when times are tough or someone's going through a difficult period.
Yeah, like, she'd probably better at answering that than me. But I think with Charlotte, like, she's definitely, there's a clear level of understanding. She would kind of come from an athletic background herself. She would have ran. Even when I was in my pomp, like, she would have understood that, David's career is priority number one. She wouldn't have tried to compete with that. And that might sound a bit weird, but, like, she was in that world. So she knows kind of like, what, he's only got a couple of years to really maximize this and obviously get to the level he wants and whatever, run fast, win medals, whatever it might be. And she supported that.
She was willing to take a step back. She was a step forward.
Yeah. And she's often said that, like, she understood, she was P2. And I think when I look back at the years around like 2008, 2009, 2010, she understood that, like, she was very much in that supportive role, and accepted that, like, this is a phase, and that probably made those years work, because I've seen other people where relationships would suffer, they'd almost feel they're competing with that sport or career, whatever it might be, and, like, I think Charlotte just got it, and understood, and I think was happy to kind of take that backseat. And I'd be gone for a good chunk of the year and stuff like that, But probably the hardest part was, like, she probably knew, okay, well, it's not going to last forever, and then we'll have, our life, and then I'll retire, and then it's like, who are you? I'm gone to complete another way, and that was probably the hardest part for her because, you know, who am I? She'd wake up next to me and be like, well, what David am I going to get today? And there'd be days where I wouldn't talk to her and she's done absolutely nothing wrong. You know, and for her, that was very difficult because she's trying to comprehend, she's trying to support me, but I keep pushing her away. And I do sometimes think like, God, you know, like I put her through the ringer, like, you know, and that's hard. It's hard for me to even say that because you kind of think, well, you know, we got married, you know, I love her to bits. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her, but why wasn't I treating her in the way that I should have been treating her? But I wasn't, my mindset wasn't in the right place. And again, maybe she understood that, you know, maybe she kind of got at that, like, you know, he's struggling. And I always kind of feel that people will go to her and go, how's David? They'd never go, how are you, Charlotte? Like, you know, and I think with mental health, there's always somebody that's trying to support someone or pick up the pieces. But I definitely think like we've come through that and it's made our relationship a hell of a lot stronger. She knows me more than anybody else in this world. And I can be honest with her. I can talk about mental health. I can talk about my emotions, my feelings. Like we don't, you know, we're very happy together in terms of like, we don't need other people around us for us to communicate or socialize. We can, you know, like I was 40 last, nearly 2 years ago, year and a half ago, and we went over to London to do a 10K. And I can remember people kind of going, you're doing what? And I was like, yeah, me, Charlotte, are going to go over and do a 10K. Just two of us. Are you meeting up with anybody else? No, just two of us. And I didn't know it, but like people were thought that was a bit strange. Like, whereas I was like, oh, like I'll just go with Charlotte. Like, you know, I think we're very comfortable in our own skin with each other, and we don't need other people around us. And I think, yeah, it's kind of when I think about that, like we actually do quite a lot of those things together, and it's nice. And I don't know why it works, but it works, and we're
you understand each other.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. We can
acceptance.
We can be honest with each other. I think we can have honest conversations, you know. Yeah, like I'm saying all this. I wonder what she would say. Like, you know?
Yeah.
But no, I think it's honesty, and like we have our outlets as well. Like she goes to a counsellor as well, and I go, and not the same person, or not together, but you know, she's got her own stuff with her own family and things like that she's obviously dealing with, and she has that outlet, and you know, she goes to the gym. She's a regular in the gym. She loves that, and I try and support that because I know the importance of it. And I think that sort of balance is very important. And obviously trying to help out at home with the kids and stuff like that. Like, you know, just 3 kids in the house, and I could be gone for a chunk of time, and that can be heavy as well. So I'd like to think I have an awareness of that. But you know, like we try and do simple things. We try and have a dinner around the table with the kids at night, and those things help. You know, like. Again, it's not the finished article. Like there still is things we could get better at. But I'd like to think that I think it comes back to communication. Like we can easily talk to each other, and we can easily confide in each other. And I don't know, maybe that makes it work. I don't know. Like,
yeah, fair play, man. That's not an easy process, but yeah, she's worth holding on to.
No, she is. Yeah, no, we get along very well, and like she's funny, and she's bubbly as well, and. As I'd say, she's a good tonic. You can put her anywhere and she'd chat away, like, brilliant. You know. But she makes the home, or the house a home, should I say. Like, and that's nice. And it's nice to come home when, you know, with Christmas and stuff like that, you'd have it all decorated and all that. And it just feels nice and homely. And she's very maternal as well. Like, she loves the kids to bits and is always trying to, you know, keep them happy and do things for them. And, you know, again, the memory side of it, she'd be very keen on that. Like the little kind of photo book as well. It's brilliant.
Epic idea. If there was... one thing you could tell David of 30 years of age, you know, because 30 seems to be a defining moment for a lot of men in their lives. And I experienced it as well when I really started to get my shit together. If you could go back and have a conversation with him at 30, given the state that you were in, what would you say?
Be patient. Give yourself some time. I think I wanted all the answers. I wanted everything done at 30, you know, and I didn't know what success was. I thought it was very much materialistic stuff. And when I look back at that time, I was like, I'm still young. I'm still learning. Allow yourself, give yourself a bit of a wide berth. I wanted all the answers. I wanted everything fixed, and I wasn't happy. So you're chasing things. And I think, the 30's young, even mentally, you don't know. Some people do, a lot of people don't. And I think it's just trust your gut, allow yourself to explore, and be patient.
Was there something more than at 40 that you realised?
40, I think what I've learned at 40 is you begin to kind of know what you enjoy. And that can be a difficult phase as well because, career-wise, people could be, you could be 20, 25 years in a career. You might be looking at that element of kind of going, right, do I want to change or am I getting a bit bored or whatever? I also think like even socially as well, you kind of maybe realise that, people are different. People are into different things. That's okay too. I think at 40 you begin to maybe realise what you are about and what are the things that you kind of want to do and what makes you you. But that can be really difficult as well because like I have found that it's, I don't go out as much, with the kids being young. I'm not really into alcohol, I have a couple of beers here and there, but, socially as well, a lot of people would socialise through that. And then you're kind of feeling, oh God, am I not making the out? Am I falling away from my mates? And you feel a bit guilty about that. And that's what I have felt around 40. But the most important thing to me is my kids now and trying to be with them. And I think family has probably come more to the fore at 40. But it's also as well, you begin to go, right, 65, 25 years, like what's the retirement? What are the things that I'd love to do, it's interesting because even I probably think more about the family now at the age kind of 40, 41 about like, God, like these years are going to go so fast. I need to make the most of them. There's probably an element of pressure I put on myself around that. I want to make the most of these years with the kids, the Christmases, the holidays. But they're going to grow up inevitably. So you have to allow that to happen as well. So try and get the balance right, perhaps.
Trying to be present more so, yeah.
Try and be present and just talk to them. Mm-hmm. I think like we're all challenged in the world with the pace of life and technology and stuff like that. But I think, even my kids are young, but by talking to them, just been there and talking to them, whether it's before bed, the simple things like, how's your day? And again, Charlotte's good at that around the dinner table. She's like, right, you're first, tell us about your day. And it could be funny stuff, but it's just presence, just been there. And I think that kind of, for me, 40 kind of defined that. That's kind of where we're at,
Everyone has an opportunity to be heard and to be seen. Everyone feels valued then as part of the family.
I'd like to think that, yeah. I think it's important. And I think you create the relationships. They're the formative years where if there's a value in communication and being present and sitting around a table, in the high kind of fast pace of life we all live, I think half an hour around a table in the evening time isn't a whole lot to ask for,
David, I absolutely love this conversation.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
It's been brilliant, man. Been brilliant. For all the listeners, where can they find you, reach out to you, follow your journey?
Yeah, like I social media is probably where it's at these days, I'll be throwing stuff up, what I'm about and kind of bits and bobs, some of the journey. But that's generally where you'll get me.
And a little bit on TV as well. So
a little bit on TV.
Your face popping up there.
Yeah. No, look, sport is great and it's a pleasure and it's a privilege to be involved in sport. And even, Paris was fantastic this year. And to kind of, I never would have thought I'd be in that position, to be brutally honest. It wasn't something that I actually, when I retired, planned, this is what I want to do. And I think there's a message in that as well. I think allow yourself to explore. If an opportunity comes, you grab it. And I think for me to be that close to the sport and kind of have a role, and the big thing is to kind of showcase the sport that has been very good to me, to everyone back home, and highlight the amazing athletes that we have both here in Ireland and abroad. I think sells a sport, but for me personally, it's just fantastic to be involved.
Brilliant. Thank you, David.
No worries. Thank you.